Okay, ready? Okay, so my first question is, so your first argument talks about how we don't have an understanding of Earth systems and weather patterns. What do we not understand?
So given the fact that there was a study conducted by the NIPCC, it was rather determined and rather straightforward that there are a lot of chemical and biological processes that influence climate over time. For instance, how, say, certain ecological systems might react to certain climates, and what are the impact of these climatic events. So given the fact that scientists do not necessarily understand these things, we say that at that point the models will not be able to accurately predict.
Okay, and also, our models, when you talk about assumptions over and over again, can you explain what you mean by assumptions? Like, what's an example of an assumption that a model might make?
So insofar as climate goes, or for that matter, any sort of like climatic patterns go, certain assumptions that have to be made, for instance, are the level of emission of certain gases. While you might be able to predict, say, CO2, and say that anthropogenic climate change might happen, there are other gases that also impact the ozone layer, for instance, sulfur dioxide or nitrogen dioxide for that matter.
Okay.
And those have to be administered and kept in different variables at that point.
Okay, and so also, what your NIPPC source, what models were they evaluating?
So the NIPCC was not only evaluating the IPCC models, that were rather proven to be wrong, but at the same time they were taking into account the other state-of-the-art models that you were talking about. Well, it did not necessarily say that it was Berkeley or for that matter Stanford, for instance. It also did account for the fact that they did a comprehensive overview of the models that are used for policy decision making.
Okay. Also, you talk about growing uncertainties with technology. Can you explain that further?
Sure. So, given the fact that an assessment was conducted by an Indian scientist, who, by the way, is a chemist who models biochemical systems, because of the fact that you want to make your models more realistic and include more variables, as a result, what happens is that there's more uncertainties that are involved when including all these variables. As a result, what happens is that you increase the number of uncertainties in that sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Chair will now hear from the leader of the government for his 4 steps of refutation. 4 steps of refutation.
So
he said, I disagree because there are 4. Yes, he knows them. We'll see if he uses them.
Okay, so before I go into my 4 steps, I'm going to quickly just break down the framework, talk about the criteria once again, and then talk about why we should win. Also, break down the definitions, because that's a huge part of contention in today's debate over the definition of the term accurately. So I'm just going to quickly break those down and kind of clear it up for the judge's accessibility and ease. So first of all, for the criteria, once again, restating whichever side has one more feather than the other side pretty much wins, as definition by preponderance of the evidence, as established by the fact. If we have one feather on our side of the fact, then we win. If they have one feather on their side of the fact, they win. So that's going to be the number 1 voting issue that you guys all should be voting for or voting based on. Now, the definition. So I believe our definition that we established in our first constructive is a fair definition that has to be relevant to public policy. And the reason why we can't ignore public policy is because the whole reason why people use, or scientists use computer models, is to impact public policy, is to impact some sort of change. The whole reason they've spent billions of dollars into all this research, into computer models, is to have some sort of impact on public policy. So to have a definition that accurately translates to meaning successfully impacting public policy, I believe is not an abusive definition. I believe it's a fair definition. And I believe it's the proper definition in the context of this proposition. And they have really proven that it wasn't abusive, and they have really given no reason to not take into our definition. Thus, you should take into our definition of the term accurately. And then lastly, I believe if they only had really one argument, so I only have to go through the 4 steps once. I only brought one argument from their case that actually stood any grounds, and it was their last argument, I believe. They said that climate change has not worked, or computer models have not worked. But I disagree, because there's been an immense amount of technology increases in the past 20 years. Therefore, they're just simply speculating that this technology won't work in the future. And because of this, the affirmative should win, and the negative has simply failed to hit the tennis ball back to our side of the court. Thank you. Please vote for the government.
What was the time?
206.
206, thank you. Chair will now hear from the leader of the opposition for his 4 steps of refutation in 2 full minutes.
Good afternoon. Once again, having a definition that relies upon the impact of public policy is completely wrong. This is a factual debate. If they cannot prove that models are scientifically accurate within a reasonable margin of error, they are failing. If they don't want to agree to our definition, it's because they lack confidence in their evidence. And there's a lack of evidence of its accuracy on a statistical level. More so, they said that models are getting increasingly accurate. We do agree, but we also disagree because models are not completely getting more accurate. In an article in the Earth and Space Science News from earlier this year, they stated that the margin of error in multiple models have not improved since 1995. That's a 23-year period. Therefore, the models have not improved to the extent they say. Therefore, their accuracy claim is flawed. More so, they also said that these uncertainties are not that important. And it's true to an extent because some uncertainties can be quantified, but many cannot. Meaning that there is, and I quote now, that there is some level of irreducible ignorance in our understanding of future climate. This is from an academic journal. On balance, you should vote for us because we have clearly established that there is significant doubt to the accuracy of models. If they cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these models are in fact accurate within a reasonable margin of error, they do not win this debate. Once again, this is something they have failed with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair will now hear the distinguished young woman from the East who will refute the opposition's arguments in 2 minutes using the 4 steps of refutation.
Okay. So first of all, they said that we have a lack of knowledge. We disagree because we do have an understanding of Earth's basic laws and concepts, and that the assumptions that they're talking about in their brief are based on laws, trends, math. It's basically like inputting into a calculator all of these things that we do know based on observations and seeing, and we can test these to see how accurate they are. Second of all, so therefore, we don't have a lack of knowledge. If anything, we have more knowledge than we ever have before, which they said somehow makes these less accurate, but that's simply not true. As we gain more knowledge about the environment, our models only get better, and they're already within the a margin of error that we think is acceptable under this definition. Second of all, they said that models are based on assumptions. However, we disagree because, like, an example of an assumption is, let's assume that CO2 is at this level. Let's say it goes to this level because maybe businesses don't do what we think they might do. They create multiple scenarios to see what will impact the Earth's climate based on these assumptions. So they have completely mischaracterized the definition of assumptions in these climate models. So therefore, the assumptions do not make these inaccurate. Third of all, they talk about small areas and how we can't predict these. However, we disagree because their data of the NIPCC only went over the IPCC's data. However, like I've already told you today, there are more accurate models that use smaller grid sizes and have more computational power than the ones that they went over. And lastly, they said even if we have the technology at this pace, it's not going to work. However, obviously, if we have more information about the climate and 3 models have the same predictions, they can be trusted and can be accurate.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we will hear from the member of the opposition for his 2 minutes of refutation, incorporating the 4 steps of refutation. Pretty. Tell us why scientists using computer models cannot accurately predict future climate events.
So on the first contention that because current models can accurately hindcast, they can accurately forecast. They tell you that because they're able to hindcast, that they are able to accurately forecast because of the fact that they are properly aligned with their scientific or like any sort of mathematical assumptions that they've made. However, we disagree to that because this is purely just not how statistics and scientific projections work. We have data on events that have already occurred, and rather scientifically or mathematically, it is easy to place lines on the data and say that we have certain correlation, or say we have an equation in order to build a particular model. Because at best, even if we do have this sort of line or any sort of a model or any sort of equation, at best we can say that these are probabilities of something happening. We cannot say with any sort of certainty that an event will take place. They, within their own refutation right now, said that there are multiple scenarios of events taking place, which in and of itself says that there's a high relation with the number of probabilities of different events that can take place. Insofar as there are different probabilities and these probabilities can depend on different models to models, we can say therefore that these models are not necessarily accurate and are rather prone to uncertainties and errors based on the assumptions or the modeling process that take place. Secondly, on the contention that the multi-model approach is good. They say that scientists use multiple models in order to make more informed predictions, and that's the best way to go about doing that. We disagree. We on side opposition disagree to that because different models are based on different assumptions, and as a result, utilizing these models that have different ways of say measuring temperature or measuring certain changes in variables is inaccurate because not only sometimes will they give different results on a small scale, even though they might predict a larger, similar larger outcome. But at that point, it is rather an apple to oranges comparison, not an apple to apples comparison, because the assumptions and the process that goes into it is necessarily different. And as a result, on that claim, we take that debate. But thirdly, model technology has significantly advanced. They say that because this technology has advanced, the accuracy of the models will significantly increase. We disagree to that. Why is that? Because while technology has improved, it has not reached the extent to which it is able to utilize the multitude of variables that are present within the climate, or for that matter, analyze the raw data or the massive data that they purport of having within the natural world. Therefore, we say that because of the uncertainties involved by bringing in these new variables, they will not be able to accurately predict what happens.
Thank you very much. It's now time for the rhetorical gladiators to cross the room and congratulate each other on a very fine debate. It's now time for our adjudicators to personally and privately fill out your ballot. Thank you so much.
In like 6-7 minutes.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like finance. Yeah, all these 15 or 9 of the 15 had to. Oh, yeah, no, I submitted before. Yeah. I probably should have just done it. I felt like I missed a lot of it. So what's like that's the is that it? Just the speech? Not until final. And then we I don't know. I'm sure. After that, I'll say I've had like 5 minutes. I'll do it. 30-minute paper. Wait, you think 3? Oh. Oh, no. Yeah. Is it policy band, right? So is he band or some more like
People are still working. People are straying. So where'd you stay in the beautiful East Coast?
So we stayed like right next to the graduation, where the graduation was held.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we were in like Baltimore in the city.
Did you get caught in the rain?
It didn't rain at all. It was actually really warm. It was like in the 80s.
Oh,
Professor Weber, just a small question. It's like a very petty
don't
thing.
stand near me.
Okay, I'll sit near you. Okay, it's just a petty thing. I was just wondering if class goes up until 3:50, if I can just leave it 5 minutes early. I have an intramural playoff game at 4 sharp.
Yeah, fine.
Oh, are you sure about that? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
So what are you today? What does it say? Belgium?
What?
What does your hat say?
Where is this thing?
Ballet.
Yeah, bad.
Thank you.
I have a question. What's the reason why you said you know, because no, I know because I was because like his name might sound like someone's one of like real just I see. Okay, I was like, would I give him more credit? I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Carolina. Carolina. Any more ballerinas? Any more ballerinas from Carolina? You have a ballad still? Just taking notes. Do I have all the ballads? No. Okay. When your friend
Another ballad.
Another ballad. Do I have them all?
I think scripting is better than press.
You want to listen? You want to listen today? Since you were participating? Okay. Who can I get? Delia, we're going to start in the rear. The Delia is, I don't want to be pictured on the.
You don't want to be on this.
No, so don't, even though I speak, don't picture.
Don't show you. Okay. We're gonna start in the back.
We're going to start in the rear. Okay,
I'm gonna zoom
ladies
it
and
out.
gentlemen,
Sorry.
may I have your attention, please? That means you in the rear. On a 14-7 decision, it goes to guess what? The government. I want to say a couple of things before we come to the decision, just apropos to resolutional analysis. Resolutional analysis. I thought that when we looked at this resolution, that we needed to, in our minds, have a very clear idea of difference between weather and climate, right? So you're sure what that difference is, and what does accurate mean? Does accurate mean in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 50 weeks, 50 years? And it seems that got a little fudged. But nevertheless, we had a good debate, and we got a lot of issues aired, and we heard about the both strengths and weaknesses of modeling when it comes to predicting climate events. So we're starting in the rear. That would be you.
Hi, my name is Serena.
Hi, Serena.
I voted for the affirmative. I think both sides did a really good job, but I like how the affirmative gave a roadmap and made it really clear what the points were in terms of refuting, because I think that it makes it easier to follow what the arguments are. And I also think in terms of delivery, they made it like really easy to follow along with like pace and everything. So I voted for the affirmative.
I would add, I felt Haley's reputation was
Yeah.
spot on and very clear.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
My name's Brittany. I voted for the
Brittany?
Yeah.
Hi, Brittany.
I voted for the opposition because I felt like they were clear and direct and they were confident in their argument. So I became therefore an audience member confident in the source, and that is what led me to vote for them.
So, in the end, you weren't sure we could accurately predict, is that correct?
Yes.
I'd like us to say something new and specific about arguments that were actually made as we go around the room, okay? So, that would be your turn, sir.
My name is Yassine.
Hi, Yassine.
Hi. I voted for the proposition / government. I thought everyone did a really good job. I honestly kept flip-flopping every time someone was talking as a testament to how good you guys were doing. Ultimately, Haley's 7-minute spiel won it in my mind. You did a very good job of clearing up a lot of confusion that thing had come up after the first 2 speakers, and just were very clear, concise, and I knew exactly where you were going, what you were saying. One thing I would say though is I didn't think you needed to bring up the whole knowing that there is warming is more important than knowing how much we're gonna get, how much warming we're gonna get, because I didn't think it did too much to add to your points, and if anything, it just opened you up to potential criticism, and I mean, critique jumped on it right away in the cross-ex. And critique, I know you were trying to fit in a lot into 7 minutes, but it was so difficult to keep up for 7 minutes at the blistering pace you were talking. You were going so fast, and you were saying good stuff, but it was really hard to keep up. But all in all, everyone did really well.
That's valuable feedback from the smart guy, had good arguments, his brief was very sound. If you could read it, you would see it was really solid, but it was delivered at a barenet speed, and you had to had a few cups of coffee to stay keep up with it. You like it? Yes, please.
My name is Sarah.
close-ups of people, right? You don't want close-ups.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Basically, I agree with everything that Yusuf just said. I voted for the affirmative, and I came in actually like kind of being like a bit doubtful of like their claim and like whether they would be able to prove that computer models can accurately predict future climate events. But I think Haley's evidence was like she did a good job presenting her evidence and like just showing those different models that fall within the margin of error, which I don't know, she just like proves her points well. The other side did really well too. But yeah, overall, I just was really drawn to Haley's arguments. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Nilu.
Hi, Nilu.
Hi, Professor.
Very good.
Good. For the debate, I thought it was amazing. You guys all did such a great job. Great eye contact. You know, super engaging. I ultimately voted for the opposition just because Critique made this point in his cross-examination of having apples to oranges, and he said that, like, the way I thought of it is that how accurate can these computer models be if they're constantly getting updated? So that just was running through my mind through the whole time with this idea of accuracy, and I ultimately sided with them.
Yes, please.
I'm Justin.
Hi, Justin.
I voted for affirmative because when it comes down to it, like the scientists using computer models can accurately, so the definition of accurately is what took it home for me because I was on both sides, like they both have really compelling arguments, but looking at definition wise, it is accurate, so it's like, that's why I chose affirmative. And also the points that they brought up, how Haley brought up, how there's always gonna be a margin of error, that's always for further research, and like biasly studying science, I know that there's always gonna be research done, so I feel like they were headed in the right direction, arguing how they agree that there is assumptions, but it's all under a certain, like 0.5 or something she said, and I think that took it home for me.
Justin, let me put you on the spot for a moment. You don't have to answer if you don't.
Yeah.
But I get it, like in these predictions that are 5 and 10 years out, but these ones that are going 20, 30, and 50 years, do you have the same confidence in those?
No. It's, as we've seen like in the past, like it's also like how we're increasing like technology like at a rapid rate. I think that the rates are gonna be changing depending on how fast
Yeah.
our technology
Things
improves.
are gonna come up.
Yeah.
that will change. Okay, thank you, Justin. Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
I agree with you saying, like I was like flipping in between the two, but I actually took a different view on Haley's rebuttal. I honestly thought that it was very concise and very well thought out, but she mentioned something about the different scenarios. And I ultimately voted for the opposition because I felt like she kind of admitted to having to like agree on the uncertainties and like are aware of the uncertainties because that's what different scenarios actually bring up. So I ultimately thought that they poked more holes than them having like the burden of proof.
Good, good, yeah. So you felt that was kind of a crucial fatal error kind of thing? Good, yes, sir.
I'm Jacob.
Hi, Jacob.
I voted for the affirmative, and it kind of came down to kind of borrow from Arun's analogy of the tennis match. Seemed like every one of the points the opposition made, they could refute and come back at them, and it didn't seem like the points the government made were refuted well enough by the opposition. So I just felt like everything they threw at them was getting tossed right back in their face and not the other way around. So at the end of the day, the government.
Just to ask, is it Richard or Ricard? Ricard. I'm sorry, Ricard. Ricard, now first and foremost, you had disclosure, I'm assuming. I hope so. And Ricky, do you feel that's valid criticism that you didn't clash and refute the crux of the case? Because I mean, you know, okay, just let you answer and then I'll answer.
No, I mean, you always become a bit biased to your own arguments because you know your own arguments, you know the points, you have seen research for both ways. So in that sense, I think you're able to relate what they say more to your own research and immediately saying, well, this will be disproven what I'm saying there, but for a judge that may not be clear what the link between those two things are.
There's an art. So you feel that that criticism was somewhat valid, that you didn't really
Well, if someone
refute
says you
everything.
didn't do it, then you can't say you did it.
Pratik, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, while we might have touched on the things, probably could have done better. We just start with like saying like, you know, this is their premise that this.
Okay, good. I will tell you, on paper, they had some pretty good answers to what Arun and Haley were arguing, but I agree they didn't really deliver them in a way to clash and to persuade and to get through to the audience. You're right about that. Yes.
Hi, I'm Cole. I thought you guys,
Hi, Cole.
all of you guys from like the delivery standpoint did a really good job. I liked your emotion when you were speaking. It was really like nice to listen. Like you could tell there's a lot of passion behind what you're saying, and the room was very concise. I liked Ricard's analogies, and then Pratik, I love that pun at the start. You happy? So
You had your vote, turn it out so I can take notes on it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I voted for the affirmative in the end. Just because I thought Haley's reputations were really good on, because you guys are talking about the accuracy a lot, and then Haley had said, wait, just be clear guys, here's the IPCC, and then like here's the other models, and these are how these other models are accurate, and from that, I just felt that they had done a good job of proving how they were accurate, and I just feel like it wasn't refuted enough to where, I thought you guys did your reputation, I'm not saying you did, but I just thought I wasn't convinced enough that it wasn't accurate after that, so that's ultimately why.
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty smart in saying, we're not gonna just defend IPCC.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Ikechi. I voted for the government because I felt like Red's points were pretty solid, and then also with the thing about like him talking a bit like too fast, I kind of like lost me. But you guys did have like strong points as well. I ended up with.
That's good feedback for T to hear, I hope he's listening.
Okay, so my name's Tyler, and I voted for the affirmative because I think Arun's roadmap in the beginning was really good and just kind of like set out how you're gonna argue the case. I don't think you needed to reiterate it at the end. It was already strong enough where we knew what was happening if they had run its course and you did everything you said you guys were gonna do. Haley, I really like repurposing the analogy that Ricard used when you repurpose like it's like taking a test. I thought that was really strong and clear and just like an easy image. For the opposition, I feel like you guys had a lot of material, but what I needed from you, I think, and maybe I just missed it because you guys were talking pretty fast. I think I needed like some like hard evidence, like here's a model that didn't work. I think like Serena, like during her debate, had like she showed like a model of like the hurricanes, like oh well this model was wrong and had like a lot of numbers. I think that's what I needed from you guys.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I agree. My only criticism of Arun's roadmap in the beginning was he took a little time to get to the case. But he did very clearly lay out what he was gonna do, so that turned out to be very critical for everyone to understand what he was gonna do. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Lane.
Eileen.
Hi. I voted for the government, and the reason why I did that, first of all, both of my father did great, and I was like on the fences the whole time. But basically, what ultimately made me vote for affirmative was, from the beginning, the government made very clear that they're not going to go by and which show that like they're working on something, but they're arguing something that they're not directly arguing. But one thing that I believe the affirmative could have made more use of was something that Jennifer mentioned when the opposition said that they admitted that there are a lot of assumptions. I feel like it would have been beneficial for the affirmative to mention there are a lot of assumptions, but that's how models work. You come up with a lot of assumptions to come up with the best assumption possible and present it forward rather than leaving it open and questions in the audience's mind and draw different conclusions.
Yeah. Good. Yes, please.
I'm Danielle.
Danielle Lieberman.
So, I thought that the debate was really good. It was much more conversational than a few of our previous debates, so that was really nice to see. I really liked how the affirmative, so I looked at the topic and I basically said like, oh crap, like they're gonna have a pretty difficult time defending this. But I liked that they really, really tightly narrowed the scope. Okay, we're gonna define accurately as within a certain like margin of error, and then future climate models that we're gonna be talking about, they're gonna be the very specific, like brand new technology, top 3. I think you guys mentioned 3. But I ultimately voted for the opposition. I thought they did a better job at reiterating the evidence and the credibility of those sources. I think Pratik mentioned certain scientists like 3 or 4 times. And then I think the ultimate tipping point for me, they were talking about a multi-model approach, but Pratik pointed out, back up, multi-model, I said, okay, that makes sense, right? Collaborative, more people working on it, that would make sense, that would be more accurate. But Pratik brought in that, okay, multi-model can also be considered like multi-assumptions, right? And anything within science is ultimately based off of observation, so that led me to see a lot of interjection of subjectivity, which leads to uncertainty and just basically a big question mark. So I felt like they did a better job at making me question how accurate these models could be, even with that margin of error.
Great. Thank you, Danielle.
Hi, my name is Carolina. I ended up voting for the opposition. I think you all did a great job. Both kind of like a little bit of evidence. Maybe if you guys said like, oh, this model predicted this, but actually this happened, or predicted this and this did not happen, or something like that, would be a little bit easier to kind of understand. Because every time you guys talked, I was like, yes, I agree, and then yes, I agree. So it was kind of hard to keep up with it. But at the end, I voted for the opposition because even Pratik said at the end, like it is very uncertain, assumptions and all these things. I have an econ background, so we always get like accuracy as like 70% or 80%, and I think maybe you guys lack a little bit of that. There is an error, but like it really depends on your assumptions, how big that error is. So I ended up going with the opposition.
Hi, I'm Trish.
Hi, Trish.
I voted for the affirmative because what really stood out to me was their point on a multi-model approach, which actually contrasts with Danielle's point. The opposition was saying that a multi-model approach is like not having a standard. And to me that was a strength, like the wisdom of crowds, because you're putting in different heuristics, and if you average different experts, that has proven to work in different fields. So to me that's what really convinced me that they're narrowing the margin of error that way, because they're not just taking one model, they're averaging different ways of how to predict something. So what if one model missed out on an element, maybe this model did that, and if you average that together, then it works.
You got a little better. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Frank. Well, I actually make a few of these models, just very simple models, because I'm a physics major and they just want us to do this just to get involved if you want to go to graduate school. So I'm a little biased in the sense where you guys start. By saying 5% or 0.5% error, I was kind of off by that, because I was more on Arun's side, where you have the one feather. If you're 51% to 49%, you're accurate. And a lot of people can question that, of course, but I think when you're just thinking about the facts, and I also agree with you guys, this has nothing to do with policy. It's a factual thing. It's scientific. Is this true? And if it's true, it's 51% probability true. So if if you do it 100 times, if it's accurate 51 of those times, then it's accurate. That's what I was basing it off of. So if I was basing it off of the 0.5% error margin, I would have voted for you guys, because you guys gave a lot of doubt as to like all the assumptions that go into it, but I was basing it more on their side. So that's pretty much why. But there's a few things I just want to clear up about models, because I feel like there's like a strange understanding of it. That if it's probabilistic, it's not accurate. I don't think that's true. The probabilistic is always not associated with accuracy. It's only the 51% to 49% if it's accurate, I think. Not saying, what I mean is, if you say it's probabilistic based, not certain, it's not certain, it's not 100% certain, it's probabilistic based, and therefore we can't conclude certain things. That's never the case. It's always probabilistic. The other thing is, what Trish was saying almost is, if you have different models and you compare them, it's almost a good thing. You could say one thing and say, well, these are my assumptions, and we concluded this, and then this other lab group did the same and concluded the same thing in different ways. Sometimes that's often good, and that just means your model or your conclusion is just more backed up by other groups most of the time. It's hardly ever the case that you wouldn't want to collaborate and get to the same conclusion as other groups. It always just makes you stronger. Your conclusion is stronger if other groups align with you, even if they have different assumptions. And that's mostly it. I think from the opposition, starting from the accuracy and arguing that was a little put me offset, but also if you just argue the specific, what Haley was saying about Berkeley's model and trying to argue, well, like their flaws specifically, I would have probably just joined you guys right then and there. So I think that's what I would have needed.
We're running out of time.
Hi, William. So I voted for the government. I mainly voted on good reasoning, so it was a mix of the multi-model solution, and also they were able to convince me that their definition of accurate was better in terms of real-world application. One criticism I had was, I think it was the cross-ex between Arun and Ricard. Like, there was a lot of back and forth, and I think Ricard asked a question. I don't remember. There was something with like the cross-ex that was like basically off from the opposition side. I think it was a little too aggressive in terms of your guys' responses.
Okay, we have two more, and then our work will be done. Please be patient. Okay, quickly, three more, yes. Hi, Kiara.
Hi, I voted for the opposition. I thought I really liked the cross-examination for this debate. I thought that was like what I was going to base my position on. And I thought both sides did a really good job keeping quality to those arguments. And I eventually voted for the opposition because, like, while people were saying that critique wasn't talking quickly, I was able to understand you, and I thought you did a really good job. And all you did refute a lot of their points. So, ultimately convinced me.
John Quincy.
Hi, I'm Brett. I feel like the affirmative had it is uphill battle. The previous debates talked about pretty much how shitty your models were. So, but I feel like that their definitions kind of leveled the playing field a bit. I would have liked to use the word can accurately a little bit more in that definition. That would have maybe add some validity to the accuracy, because can or cannot is not necessarily 100% or something like that. One thing that I didn't like, or that confused me, was Arun initially talked about, they were talking about before, was Arun talked about similar models being be better because they were 1/7 of the errors. And then Haley talked about multi-models were better because it was like less variability, bigger sample size, whatever. So they kind of contradicted themselves on which was better, smaller models with less assumptions or bigger models with more. And that was a key point to me where it seemed like they were uncoordinated in their approach, and therefore I voted for the opposition.
Hi, I'm Elsie. So I voted
Hi,
for.
Elsie.
Hi. So I voted for affirmative side because I really like Haley's the way she explained how model works, and she indicated that we use multiple models to produce same outcomes from NASA, Berkeley, and NOA, and using existing data to test the model and compare to see if it's correct or not. So I think very specific.
Thank you, Elsie. Our work is done. Return with honor. Thank you, everyone.